Johan Chaco, who's going to present on the military dynamics and the implications of military intervention in Libya.
Going backward.
Yeah.
No, other way. There we go. So this is the current situation in Libya. I'm going to quickly go over the current situation, talk a little bit about the state of Libya's armed forces before the revolution of 2011, the pro-Gaddafi forces, the anti-Gaddafi forces, and the whole question of intervention. This, of course, it's possible that events may have changed while we've been sitting here. It's that kind of day out there. But in all honesty, things haven't changed that much in the last few days. This section here really focuses on Tripolitania, and there's a reason for that. That's because the fighting is over, essentially, in Cyrenaica, for the most part. And it doesn't show Fezzan in the south either, because Fezzan is very firmly in Gaddafi's hands, especially a town called Sabak, which is an important gateway to the south. And I'll explain why that's important later on. So as you can see here, Tripoli is, it's in a commanding position in the sense that it has, a large international airport and, a significant population and Gaddafi's power base. But in other ways, there is vulnerability, which is one of the reasons why he's attempted to secure his western flank by sending some of his best forces in the form of the Khamis Brigade to Zuwaya. And they've encircled the town. They're pounding it indiscriminately. And it's very critical what happens there. Misurta is another point in Tripolitania that Gaddafi would like to secure. Again, it's important because it's on the road to Tripoli. It's part of this chain of coastal towns. It's a wealthy city with a significant population. So this is where I guess the big picture stands at this moment. To understand how the relative strength of the pro and anti-Gaddafi forces, we have to talk a little bit about how Gaddafi ran the military and security services. And I think we've had some of that come out in the presentation so far. As Dr. Hadali has pointed in his highlights of Gaddafi's top 10 hits. Gaddafi has had a rather unhappy relationship with his own military. And because of that, he's had to keep it weak, which is in many ways something that we saw even in other similar dictatorships, for example, Saddam Hussein in Iraq. The greatest threat to a military dictator is one of his colleagues trying to do the same thing that he did. And he faced several such attempts. And so the result is that even though Gaddafi spent enormously on purchasing arms from the Soviet bloc in the 70s and 80s, and occasionally on and off the French, it actually was a very weak structure. On paper, he had 4,000 tanks. I think there's about 145 of them that are operational. So the military was kept weak, it was kept divided. It didn't have the kind of institutional solidity that you saw in Egypt or Tunisia. And this has very real consequences for the civil war that we're seeing right now. If I can move forward. This, I think, is a picture that sums up the anti-Gaddafi militias. They're shooting at the planes that Gaddafi is using to bomb them. Okay, so I think this says something about there's no shortage of courage here. guy in a wheelie chair with a rifle taking pot shots at a jet. But they're not organized, they're not properly armed, and not particularly well trained. However, there are also these guys who are defecting members of the Libyan army. Now they are armed, not particularly heavily, because as I said, a lot of the heavy weapons out of commission anyway. But they do have more training, and they do have better organization at the tactical level. However, their morale is it's not as high as the militia guys. So they're not willing to take the same risks going after Gaddafi. And there's issues being worked out in terms of command and control as the Libyan opposition tries to pull itself together as a coherent entity. But these guys are the people who would play an important part in a big push if and when it came. Because, as I said, these guys have the training and the greater cohesion. This is the hard end of the pro-Gaddafi forces. This is a shot from outside Zawiya of the Khamis Brigade. Now, again, the number of units like this is small, so the number of offensive actions that Gaddafi can take at any one time is also small. As you can see, these guys, their tanks stopped when they turned the key. That's an important thing. And they're capable of using the weapons that they have. As Dr. Hadley said, and I think as Ahmed said, Khamis is an organized guy. This is the kind of unit that, whether it's Libyan opposition or intervention, would have to take out to make sure that Gaddafi, the threat that Gaddafi posed to his own people was reduced. These are the kind of people that he's bringing in. Large numbers of Tuareg from the Sahel, Chad, Mali, southern Algeria. Many of these guys have long-standing links to Gaddafi. He's been basically recruiting these guys since the 70s, on and off for his private little civil wars and all kinds of fun and games in the Sahel. And they've received money from him before. Like he would pay them to fight somebody, and then he'd pay them off to put down their guns. So these people, this is one of the reasons why they responded so quickly when the call went out. However, if we see intervention led by, which would be probably led by US AFRICOM, which is the combatant command responsible for that area, these guys would surrender very quickly. They're in it for the money. They cannot surrender to the Libyan people because they know exactly what they've done to the Libyan people. But they will surrender to an outside force that they can assume will not slaughter them or hand them over to the Libyans, which would be even worse for them. I'd like to, this is just a map showing the kind of military intervention that has already been mounted to extract foreign nationals. So Western militaries actually do have a lot of knowledge and understanding of the Libyan military because, and this is the shameful secret no one's really talking about, in the last few years a lot of our governments have become good pals with Gaddafi. We've been offering him training, we've been offering to sell him new weapons, but there's the silver lining in that cloud is that means that we have contacts with some of the people in his inner circle who we might be able to persuade to essentially give up the ghost, which is something that happened in Iraq as well during the 2 Gulf Wars. But I'd like to end here. Thank you.